You ever notice how the nicest people, the ones who love the deepest, forgive the fastest and try the hardest, are the ones who eventually go nuclear? That's not coincidence. That's the super empath supernova. And if you've ever been the one who kept understanding, kept giving, kept explaining, while they kept withdrawing, blaming, and ghosting, then this episode is about you. See, every empath has a breaking point. That moment when trying to understand them turns into, I finally understand myself. It's not anger, it's awakening. It's clarity mixed with fire. Because the super empath doesn't just walk away. They detonate, quietly, peacefully, strategically. You stop begging for closure. You stop chasing their validation. And suddenly, the avoidant who once held all the power is standing in the rubble of their own silence. This isn't revenge, it's restoration. And make no mistake, the avoidant never sees it coming, because they're so used to you bending, compromising, over-explaining, that when you finally snap back to your full power, they mistake it for cruelty. No, it's clarity. You stop decoding their silence. You stop hoping they'll change. Instead, you become the storm they can't survive. Because once the empath realizes their energy was the main supply, the game ends. They pull back, and the avoidance starts to collapse. Their coping mechanisms exposed, their false control shattered, their next replacement just noise trying to fill the void you left. Psychologists call it empathic burnout, but what really happens is empathic rebirth. That's when you shift from I just want peace to I am peace. You stop reacting, you start responding. You don't beg, you bless. You don't chase, you choose. And the avoidant can't process it. They built their comfort on your compassion, and now your compassion's got boundaries. That's when the supernova begins, because this version of you, you're not playing the same game anymore. You're rewriting the rules. You're no longer trying to be understood. You're mastering the art of not needing to be. You're no longer addicted to fixing broken people. You're addicted to protecting your peace. And the universe starts to respond differently. People treat you differently. Even your silence hits different, because it's not a wound anymore. It's a weapon. You've turned your pain into presence, your empathy into energy, your heartbreak into high ground. This isn't weakness turning into strength. It's awareness turning into dominance. The super empath supernova isn't about destruction. It's about erasure, erasing every trace of their control, every illusion that they were the prize, every emotional leash they ever had on your soul. By the time they realize what's happening, you're already gone, not hiding, not waiting, just existing at a frequency their avoidance can't touch. So if you're watching this right now, and you've reached that point where their silence doesn't sting anymore, where their distance doesn't make you anxious, where you finally understand you were never too much, they were just too limited, then congratulations, you're entering your supernova. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 8 stages that turn that quiet realization into a full-scale energetic eruption that eradicates avoidance from your emotional ecosystem for good. From the first flicker of awareness to the final explosion of emotional freedom, you'll learn exactly how to shift from being their supply to becoming their lesson. This episode isn't for the weak. It's for the ones who've given too much, felt too deeply, and finally said, no more. If that's you, stay locked in. Don't skip, don't scroll, because once you understand all 8 stages, you'll never see yourself or them the same again. Enjoyed this video? Here's how to level up with Ace Wisdom. Drop a like if this hit home. It helps more people find the truth they need to hear. Subscribe if you're ready to outgrow the old version of yourself. We break down emotional patterns, psychology, and real power moves after heartbreak. If you're serious about healing, detaching, and becoming untouchable, this is your space. Turn on all notifications so you never miss when a new video drops. Want deeper insights plus exclusive content? Join the channel membership, Spark of Wisdom, Wisdom Warrior, or step it up a notch by becoming an Ace of Aces member. The link is in the video description. Know someone who needs this message? Share this video with a friend who's stuck, confused, or ready to rise. You could be the reason they finally let go and step up. Silence, replacement, and regret. Because this isn't just another video. It's the moment the empath takes their power back and never gives it away again. Ready? Let's ignite. Stay focused. Stage 1. The emotional collapse. The breaking point before the breakthrough. It starts quiet. No screaming, no argument, no dramatic goodbye, just an internal snap. That moment when your nervous system finally says, "I'm done absorbing this." You can't keep rescuing someone who's drowning by choice. You can't keep explaining your heart to someone who refuses to listen. You can't keep carrying both your emotions and theirs. This is the collapse before the eruption. You've been holding the relationship together with emotional duct tape, making excuses for their inconsistency, rationalizing their distance, convincing yourself that if you just love harder, they'll finally feel safe enough to love you back. But they don't. They withdraw. They go cold. They act like your feelings are an inconvenience. And at first you blame yourself. Maybe I said too much. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I should have given them more space. No. What's really happening is that your nervous system is done playing nurse to someone else's dysfunction. Your intuition is screaming, "This isn't love. This is depletion." The empath's downfall has always been over-identification. You see their pain, so you try to heal it. You see their avoidance, so you try to bridge it. You see their silence, so you try to fill it. But every attempt costs you a piece of your peace, and one day, without warning, your body revolts. The tears don't come anymore. The patience runs dry. The "it's okay, I understand" turns into pure, silent detachment. That's the supernova ignition point. It's the moment your heart realizes it's not broken. It's just tired of bleeding for the wrong person. Stoic philosophers called it ataraxia, a state of emotional equanimity where nothing external can disturb your inner calm. You don't reach it by accident, you reach it through exhaustion. You've seen the cycle too many times. They pull away, you chase, they return just enough to reset the pattern. You call it love, they call it control. But now the empath wakes up. You're not angry, you're awake. And that terrifies the avoidant more than any argument ever could, because they thrive on your emotion. They feed off your over-explaining. They need your energy to feel superior. And now you've gone quiet. Not the "please talk to me" kind of quiet. The "you no longer exist in my emotional world" kind of quiet. That's when the shift happens. You stop wanting them to understand you. You start wanting you back. Your empathy begins to turn inward. You start redirecting that same compassion, attention and care you used to give them back into yourself. You start asking different questions. What do I need? What have I been tolerating? What parts of me have been screaming to be heard while I was busy trying to heal someone else? This is where the super empath's power begins to rewire. The implosion becomes introspection, the exhaustion becomes enlightenment, and the avoidant feels the void immediately. Because the supply is gone. The dynamic is broken. The control is slipping. They don't realize it yet, but your silence is the sound of their karma beginning. Because once an empath hits this level of clarity, there's no going back to self-sacrifice. There's only forward, toward freedom, toward peace, toward emotional sovereignty. Stage 1 isn't about fighting back. It's about falling back into yourself. You're not collapsing, you're recalibrating. You're not losing them, you're losing the version of you that needed them. And when you finally stop apologizing for outgrowing your pain, that's when stage 2 begins. The rise, the recalibration, the awakening of someone they'll never have access to again. Stay tuned, because once you move from collapse to clarity, the real explosion begins. Stage 2, the emotional detox, cutting off the energetic supply. The collapse has happened. You've cried, analyzed, overthought, replayed every word, and now you're empty. But here's the twist, that emptiness isn't weakness, it's withdrawal, not from them, from the addiction. Because let's be honest, an avoidant doesn't just give you love, they give you dopamine. Tiny doses, intermittently, just enough to keep you hooked. A miss you after weeks of silence, a random like on your story, a breadcrumb of attention to reignite your hope. And you, being the empath, mistook that chemical chaos for connection. But in stage 2 you see it for what it is, a cycle. And cycles are meant to be broken. This is where you start detoxing. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You stop responding to half-effort communication. You stop stalking their social media. You stop waiting for closure that was never coming. It's not about ignoring them to play games. It's about refusing to feed the energetic cord that's been draining you dry. At first, it's brutal, because avoidance creates a void, and voids crave to be filled. You'll feel the urge to text, to explain, to prove your worth one more time. Don't. Every time you resist the impulse, you weaken the bond that kept you emotionally enslaved. Remember, avoidance feeds on attention. Your silence isn't rejection, it's starvation. You're cutting off their emotional oxygen. This is where power shifts, because the one who controls access controls the energy. And make no mistake, you are now the one in control. Seneca once said, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." That's exactly what this stage is, self-conquest. You're learning to sit in discomfort without reacting, to feel loneliness without reaching out, to breathe through the urge to check in. Because here's the truth, it's not them you miss. It's the version of yourself that hoped, the one that believed love could fix someone who wasn't ready to be loved, the one that kept confusing emotional neglect with emotional mystery. Stage 2 burns that illusion to ash. You start eating better, sleeping more. You journal, you pray, you hit the gym, you rediscover what peace tastes like. You become a student of your own emotions instead of their silence. And suddenly, the need to be chosen fades. The need to be understood fades. Even the anger starts to fade, because you realize you can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. And no matter how much you cared, they can't meet you where they refuse to go within themselves. That realization stings, but it also frees you. You start craving stillness instead of validation, solitude instead of attention, boundaries instead of closeness. That's the emotional detox working. You've stopped bleeding energy into black holes and started rerouting it toward your own evolution. And as that happens, something fascinating begins. They feel the detachment. The avoidant starts to sense the energetic shift. The silence hits different now. It's not a tactic, it's transformation. They'll poke, they'll test. They might even reappear just to see if you'll still respond the same way. But you won't, because stage 2 builds a muscle called emotional resistance. And once you develop it, you don't fall for crumbs ever again. You stop reacting to inconsistency. You stop trying to earn what you already deserved. You stop waiting for people to get it. Instead, you get you. The detox purges everything fake, every illusion, every trauma bond, every maybe one day. gone. This is where your aura starts to glow again, where your peace becomes magnetic, where you start to feel dangerous, because nothing terrifies an avoidant more than an empath who's no longer emotionally available. Stage 2 isn't glamorous. It's raw, it's lonely, it's powerful, but it's the bridge between pain and power, the death of your old self and the birth of your highest self. And when you make it through this stage, you don't chase closure anymore. You become it, because now you understand something profound. Healing isn't about getting them back. It's about getting your energy back. And that, my friend, is the real beginning of the supernova. Next comes stage 3, where silence stops being survival and starts becoming strategy. Stage 3, the strategic silence, weaponizing detachment. This is where the game flips. You're no longer reacting, you're responding, and sometimes that response is nothing at all. This is the stage where silence stops being weakness and becomes warfare. Not petty silence, not the kind meant to punish. This is strategic silence, the kind born from absolute clarity. Because you finally understand something powerful, you don't need to prove your worth to someone who only values your absence. Let that sink in. Avoidants crave distance. They feed off it, but what they never expect is for you to master the same distance they used to control you. They were comfortable when they went silent, but when you go silent, their world starts to shake. Because your energy was their anchor, your presence was their emotional safety net, and now it's gone. You've become the mirror they can't look into, because for the first time they have to sit in the very emptiness they once left you in. See, avoidants avoid because they fear emotional intensity, but silence creates intensity, and now you control it. Every day you stay detached, their nervous system gets louder. Their mind starts racing. Why aren't they reaching out? Have they moved on? Did I lose control? Yes, they did. You've pulled your energy back to the one place it always belonged, you. And make no mistake, this silence isn't cold. It's calculated, it's conscious, it's sacred, because real power doesn't announce itself, it withdraws. You've stopped reacting to their breadcrumbs. You've stopped explaining yourself. You've stopped feeding their ego with attention. Instead, you've become an emotional ghost, present in their thoughts, absent from their reach. This is the point where the empath evolves into the observer. You start seeing patterns instead of promises. You stop confusing mixed signals for mystery. You stop personalizing their detachment. You realize it's not rejection, it's revelation. Their silence exposed their limits. Your silence revealed your growth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Silence is a lesson learned from the talkative." Now, your silence teaches. It teaches self-respect. It teaches boundaries. It teaches consequence, because nothing forces an avoidant to face themselves like losing the one person who always understood them. They start reminiscing. They scroll through old photos. They test the waters with a, "Hey, how have you been?" They want to know if the supply is still open. It's not. They're no longer talking to the same empath. They're talking to the aftermath of their own neglect. And the craziest part, you're not even angry. You're just done. That calm energy you carry now, it confuses them. Because it's not indifference, it's detachment. You've learned to stay unbothered in the face of their patterns. You've learned to be okay with not being understood. You've learned to live without closure. Because closure happens when you stop caring about the explanation. This silence creates something avoidance can't handle: uncertainty. They can't read you, they can't predict you, they can't control you. And that's where the supernova starts to burn bright. Your silence becomes their consequence. Your peace becomes their punishment. Your detachment becomes their mirror. Because when you go quiet, they finally hear everything they ignored. The tone of your silence says it all. I've seen enough. I've felt enough. I'm done negotiating for love. At this stage, you begin mastering emotional minimalism. You don't overshare. You don't overgive. You don't overstay. You become calm, selective, and unavailable. That's the kind of energy people can't stop thinking about. That's the kind of energy that drives avoidance insane, because the same person they thought they could ghost has now become the ghost that haunts them. Stage 3 is the silence before your full rebirth. It's not about ignoring them, it's about transcending them. You've stopped fighting for connection. Now you're fighting for peace. And that, ironically, is what makes them start fighting for you. Because when the empath masters silence, the avoidant meets their match. Stay locked in. Because in stage 4, that silence transforms from protection into power. Stage 4, the power surge, becoming unreachable. Something clicks in this stage. You wake up one morning and realize you don't even care if they text back. You're not faking detachment anymore. You've become it. This is the power surge. The moment when silence evolves into strength and emotional distance turns into self-mastery. You're no longer trying to win the avoidant's attention. You're commanding your own energy. It's not revenge. It's recalibration. Because you finally understand the law of emotional economics. The more you invest in someone who gives you less, the more your value drops. But when you pull that investment back, your value multiplies. This is where your entire vibration shifts. People start noticing. Your posture changes, your tone changes, even your presence feels different. Because the energy that used to chase now attracts. You've turned off the external noise and tuned into yourself. The same silence that used to feel heavy now feels holy. You're in control of your emotions for the first time in forever, not suppressing them, channeling them. You start focusing on progress instead of pain. Your goals become louder than your heartbreak. Your peace becomes louder than their absence. And deep down, the avoidant senses it. They can feel that you're no longer waiting by your phone. They can feel that your energy no longer bends toward them. They can feel that the leash they used to hold, gone. This is where they start to panic, because for the first time they realize you've become unreachable. They might try to bait you. Subtle stories, accidental likes, passive messages disguised as check-ins, all to see if you'll still respond. You don't, because you've outgrown emotional crumbs. You don't crave validation from people who confuse affection with attention. You don't chase what hides from love. Instead, you stay calm. You move different. You breathe different. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. You're finally seeing yourself the way you always wished they would, and that's the ultimate plot twist, because that self-recognition is what makes you magnetic again. See, the avoidant was never drawn to your weakness. They were drawn to your light. They just didn't know how to receive it. Now, that same light isn't for them, it's for you. You've stopped bleeding energy into the past and started radiating it forward. The transformation is internal, but the ripple effect is external. People sense it. You become harder to access, harder to read, harder to shake. That's what emotional power feels like. It's when you stop being reactive and start being reflective. You no longer mirror their behavior. You mirror your standards. And that's when something beautiful happens. Your peace starts intimidating the avoidant. They'll test it. They'll try to re-enter with guilt, nostalgia, or sudden vulnerability. But none of it lands, because you've outgrown the frequency where that manipulation works. You've learned the difference between connection and consumption. One feeds your soul, the other drains it. And from now on, only one gets access. You've reached the stage where your energy speaks before you do, where silence says, "I've evolved past you. I've outgrown your inconsistency. I am no longer emotionally available for chaos." You're not blocking them out of anger. You're protecting yourself out of wisdom. This is emotional sovereignty. The kind Seneca wrote about when he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You're mastering yourself now, your triggers, your impulses, your empathy. You're no longer a slave to reaction. You're a student of restraint. That's what makes stage 4 so magnetic. Because when you no longer need to be chosen, you become the one who chooses. The avoidant won't understand it. They'll call it cold, detached, unrecognizable. But it's not detachment, it's elevation. You've gone from chasing love to embodying it. And once you taste that level of peace, you'll never settle for the chaos that came before it. Stage 4 is when the empath becomes rare. Not because you're hiding, but because you've become too emotionally rich for anyone who deals in emotional debt. You're not just healing anymore, you're evolving. And in stage 5, that evolution turns into attraction. Not the kind that comes from trying, but the kind that comes from transformation. Stage 5, the magnetic reversal, when your energy pulls them in. This is the turning point, the energy shift they never saw coming. You're not chasing anymore, you're attracting, not by trying, by transforming. Stage 5 is where the super empath's silence, discipline, and emotional rebirth start echoing in the avoidance world. And the echo sounds like regret. See, energy doesn't disappear, it transfers. All that love, empathy, patience, and presence you once poured into them, it's coming back to you amplified. Your glow hits different now. Your peace feels powerful. Your aura is magnetic. You're no longer running on emotional fumes. You're running on frequency. And people notice, especially the avoidant, because avoidants operate in cycles. They detach, feel relief, then feel empty, then look back for the one person who made them feel safe. But when they reach back this time, you're not there. You've leveled up, and that absence, it hurts. They start replaying every moment they dismissed, every text they ignored, every time they felt in control. Now they realize control meant nothing without connection. That's when curiosity becomes craving, because your silence has changed flavor. It's not passive anymore. It's powerful. They sense you're not angry. You're just free. And that's the most unsettling energy in the world for an avoidant, when the person they once triggered no longer feels triggered at all. They see your stories. You look peaceful, unbothered, radiant. They scroll through old messages trying to feel something. They might even text. But you reply with boundaries now. Short, calm, centered. No over-explaining. No emotional leakage. They can't read you. They can't hook you. They can't find that emotional supply they once fed on. And that's when attraction reverses polarity. Because in psychology, what we chase runs. What we release returns. You've shifted from chaser to chooser, from overgiver to observer, from emotional host to energetic high ground. You're not just glowing up physically, you're glowing up spiritually. Your conversations are deeper. Your focus is sharper. You're walking differently. You're moving differently. The people around you feel it too. New energy enters your life. New connections, new opportunities, new confidence, because life always fills the space that healing creates. And while you're expanding, the avoidant is shrinking. They thought silence gave them control. They didn't realize silence gave you clarity. They mistook your kindness for weakness. Now they're learning the difference between an empath's love and an empath's absence. Stage 5 is karmic balance in motion. You're no longer trying to make them see your worth. You're embodying it. You're not broadcasting your growth. You're radiating it. It's that quiet, untouchable power that says, I no longer seek closure from people I've outgrown. I don't need to prove I'm over you. My peace proves it. And that's when the avoidant spirals, because they realize something chilling. They didn't lose you when you walked away. They lost you when you stopped waiting. Now the game they used to control through distance is over. Because distance doesn't scare you anymore. It protects you. Your boundaries have become magnetic. Your self-respect, irresistible. Your presence, unforgettable. That's what happens when the empath stops giving love away and starts becoming it. And, ironically, that's the moment the avoidance detachment collapses, because every avoidant has one fear greater than intimacy, realizing they let the right person slip away. Stage 5 is when that realization hits, and it hits hard. But for you, this isn't revenge. This is realignment. You're not trying to make them regret losing you. You're too busy building a life they can't access, because when you master energy, you don't chase love. You attract peace, and that peace is the exact thing the avoidant will now crave, but never find again in the same place. Stage 5 marks the return of your magnetism, not because you needed them to come back, but because you no longer need them at all. Next comes Stage 6, when the avoidance collapse begins, and your calm becomes the ultimate trigger. Stage 6, the avoidant collapse, when your calm becomes their chaos. This is where the tables truly turn. Everything you built in silence, the boundaries, the self-control, the peace, it's now being felt by them, loudly, because the one thing avoidants never prepare for is your absence having weight. At first, they were relieved. They convinced themselves that losing you meant freedom, less pressure, less expectation. They told themselves the story every avoidant tells, I just need space. But space becomes emptiness real fast when the empath stops orbiting. And now, that same silence that once comforted them starts echoing back everything they tried to avoid. They scroll through messages they left on seen. They check your socials but can't find the same access. They replay moments looking for reassurance that you still care. But you don't. Not like before. Your energy has shifted. You've detached, and they can feel it on a cellular level. The control they had, gone. The dynamic they thrived on, gone. The emotional safety net they took for granted, gone. This is the avoidant collapse. It's not instant, it's internal. It starts small, a thought, a twinge, a subtle regret. Then it grows into anxiety, restlessness, and emotional confusion. Because avoidance is built on one fragile foundation, the illusion of control, and you just shattered it. See, avoidants don't handle calm energy well. Your indifference exposes their instability. Your peace exposes their fear. Your detachment forces them to confront everything they've been running from. They start to miss your empathy, but not for what it gave them, for what it revealed about you. The same love they once dismissed now becomes the gold standard their replacements can't match. They try to recreate the bond, but no one else brings that same depth, that same warmth, that same presence. Because the empath's energy isn't replaceable, it's rare. And now, the avoidant finally feels scarcity. That's when the spiral begins. They'll overthink, they'll self-sabotage, they'll seek comfort elsewhere, but it won't land, because what they miss isn't contact, it's connection. And your silence made that distinction crystal clear. Psychologists call this post-avoidant dissonance, when the mind starts rejecting the very defenses it once relied on. It's like emotional karma kicking in, forcing them to feel everything they made you suppress. While they unravel, you're still, centered, calm, glowing. That contrast drives them insane, because they can't figure out how you moved on without trying to fix things, how you found peace without their permission, how you stopped caring without closure. They used to believe you'd always be available. Now you're unrecognizable, not angry, not bitter, just elevated. That calm terrifies them more than any confrontation ever could, because it says, without a single word, I no longer need what broke me. And that realization dismantles their ego. They start second-guessing their choices. They wonder if they misjudged you. They replay the breakup and can't find justification that makes sense anymore. That's the avoidant collapse. Their detachment strategy turns inward. What once protected them now isolates them. Their defense mechanism becomes their prison. And the irony, you don't even notice. You're too busy living. You're not watching their stories. You're not waiting for a sign. You're not even curious anymore. Because your peace isn't performative. It's permanent. You've mastered what most people never learn, how to hold power without hostility. And that's exactly why the avoidant starts craving your energy again, because it's calm, grounded, regulated, the opposite of the chaos they live in. But this time, they can't access it, because the version of you that tolerated confusion no longer exists. They're left chasing a ghost, one they created. Stage 6 is poetic justice, not through vengeance, but through vibration. You've elevated so high that they can't survive at your frequency. They'll reach out, test boundaries, try to rebuild the connection they once dismantled, but you've outgrown their language. You respond with grace. Not interest, not anger, just emotional fluency. And that's what hurts them the most. You're no longer emotionally accessible. Your calm became their chaos. Your peace became their punishment. Your evolution became their reckoning. Because the moment an empath stops overgiving, every avoidant is forced to face one truth. You can't run from someone who's no longer chasing. Stage 6 is where the avoidant collapses and the empath ascends. But in stage 7, that ascension turns into transcendence. It's not about them anymore. It's about your complete emotional rebirth, the kind that turns pain into pure, untouchable power. Stage 7, the transcendence, becoming the light. They can't touch. This is the stage where everything that broke you becomes your blueprint. You're not healing from them anymore. You're evolving beyond them. You don't want revenge. You don't even want answers. You just want peace. And you finally have it. This is transcendence. The moment your energy no longer reacts to the past because your frequency has outgrown it. You've stopped needing to prove you've moved on. You are the proof. The avoidant still checks in from time to time, but their attempts feel small now, like echoes from another lifetime, because they're still moving in cycles, and you're moving in dimensions. They're stuck replaying old chapters. You're writing a new book. Your power at this stage isn't loud, it's felt. It's the way you walk into a room and every energy shifts. It's the way people feel safe around you without knowing why. It's the peace that can't be faked, the aura that can't be copied. You've turned your pain into presence, your empathy into wisdom, your silence into self-mastery. And the most beautiful part? You're not guarding your heart anymore. You're guiding it. You've learned discernment. You know who deserves your softness and who only earns your silence. You know the difference between safe love and familiar trauma. You've become fluent in energy. You can feel inconsistency a mile away, and you don't chase it. You bless it and release it. The avoidant doesn't understand this version of you. You used to need their closure. Now they need your calm. They reach out looking for that old dynamics, no, but the emotional mirror they used to control. But you don't reflect them anymore. You refract them. You bend light, not for them, but through you, because the super empath's glow-up isn't aesthetic, it's energetic. And that glow doesn't come from moving on fast. It comes from moving on deep. You faced your shadows. You met your triggers. You sat in the silence they ran from, and you found yourself in it. Now your soul doesn't crave chaos. It craves consistency. It craves truth. It craves peace. And that peace has become your baseline. You've turned the very qualities they called too much into your superpower. Your sensitivity. Now it's your intuition, your compassion. Now it's your discernment, your boundaries. Now they're your aura. You no longer apologize for being intense. You attract people who can meet you there. The avoidant looks at you and feels something they can't name. Envy mixed with admiration, fear mixed with longing. Because you've become the embodiment of everything they ran from: depth, stability, emotional truth. You're no longer the wound, you're the mirror that exposes theirs. And that's why your presence is both healing and haunting. You don't trigger their ego anymore, you trigger their soul. They start realizing it wasn't that you were too much. It's that they were never enough for the depth you carried. You used to orbit around their energy. Now you're the gravity. You've entered the phase where detachment isn't a defense. It's divine alignment. You can love without losing yourself. You can care without collapsing. You can give without guilt. That's transcendence. It's when forgiveness isn't something you force, it's something you become. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because peace does. Because your energy is too sacred to keep recycling old pain. And here's the irony: your peace becomes their obsession, your indifference becomes their teacher, your growth becomes their punishment. Because they realize too late, you weren't dramatic, you were devoted. You weren't needy, you were nourishing. You weren't weak for loving deeply. They were weak for not being able to handle it. Now, you've turned your heartbreak into high-frequency energy. You've become emotionally self-sufficient. You've stepped into your purpose. You're finally home within yourself. And that's a level of power that no avoidant can ever touch. Stage 7 is not about being untouchable. It's about being unshakable. You've become what they could never be: safe in your own skin, at peace with your own mind, in love with your own soul. And as you rise higher, you'll realize something profound. You didn't lose them. You lost the version of you that needed them. In stage 8, you don't just transcend, you transform into legacy. You become the ultimate evolution of the super empath, the one who no longer reacts but radiates. Stage 8, the supernova, total eradication. You become the lesson. This is it. The final eruption, the full evolution of everything you've endured, released and rebuilt. This is the supernova. It's not anger, it's not revenge. It's the quiet, unstoppable force of a soul that finally knows its own worth. You've passed through every layer: collapse, detox, silence, power, magnetism, transcendence. And what's left now isn't just strength, it's clarity. You've become light. But not the soft, comforting kind they used to take from you, the kind that burns through illusion. You're no longer reacting to their behavior, you're revealing it. The avoidant can't hide behind detachment anymore because your energy exposes everything false. You see their patterns instantly. You read their intentions without words. You sense the manipulation before it even forms. You've become emotionally X-ray vision, because once you survive an avoidant, you gain the emotional intelligence of a lifetime. You know what inconsistency feels like. You know what projection sounds like. You know what love isn't, and that wisdom makes you untouchable. Stage 8 is when your empathy goes supernova. It doesn't disappear. It explodes outward in all directions, illuminating everything it touches, but consuming nothing. You no longer need validation to feel seen. You no longer chase connection to feel whole. You no longer beg for reciprocity. You embody it. You've stopped trying to teach avoidants how to love. Now your evolution teaches them through consequence. Because here's the truth. When a super empath goes supernova, the avoidant doesn't just lose access to your time, they lose access to your frequency. Their avoidance no longer works in your orbit. Their silence no longer registers as rejection. Their games no longer land because you're not playing anymore. And that's what eradicates them. Not bitterness, not blocks or revenge, just evolution. The universe doesn't punish them for losing you. It punishes them by showing them no one else gives them the peace you did. They'll keep searching for your energy in others. They'll find fragments, imitations, echoes, but never the source. Because the source was you, and the source has ascended. Stage 8 is divine detachment. It's the moment you stop orbiting people and start gravitating purpose. Everything you lost starts returning, not in the same form but in higher vibration. You start attracting emotionally secure partners. People who communicate, who reciprocate, who see you. You attract aligned friendships, aligned opportunities, aligned abundance. Because you've shifted from wounded empathy to embodied energy. You're no longer afraid of solitude, you're fueled by it. You're no longer addicted to connection, you choose it consciously. You're no longer triggered by avoidance, you diagnose it and move on without explanation. And the avoidant? They feel it. Every ounce of your glow reminds them of what they took for granted. Every calm post, every confident smile, every peaceful silence. It all screams one truth they can't escape. You were the storm, but I became the sky. That's the supernova. You didn't just heal, you ascended. You turned heartbreak into higher vibration. You turned pain into power. You turned your story into strength. You became what Carl Jung called the self-realized soul, a being that has integrated both darkness and light and now moves through the world with unshakable peace. You no longer mirror the avoidant. You magnify authenticity. Your empathy doesn't rescue anymore, it refines. Because you've become the lesson. The avoidant's greatest punishment is seeing you become everything they weren't ready for. Not because you wanted to prove a point, but because you finally became one. You're the embodiment of emotional evolution, the living reminder that love doesn't die when it's rejected, it upgrades. Stage 8 is cosmic completion. It's your rebirth into self-sovereignty. No resentment, no revenge, no regret, just radiance. You are no longer the empath who bends, you're the force that expands. You are no longer their safe place, you're their wake-up call. You are no longer waiting for love, you are love. And that's the supernova, the final transformation of pain into power and love into legacy. Because once the empath becomes the light, the avoidant can never live comfortably in the dark again. The return of the super empath. So here you are, at the end of the storm, at the beginning of your empire. You didn't just survive the avoidant cycle, you decoded it. You saw every manipulation, every breadcrumb, every silent test. And instead of breaking, you built. You built awareness. You built boundaries. You built peace that doesn't need permission. And that peace, that's your power now. Because the truth is, the supernova isn't about them at all. It's about you finally remembering who you were before they tried to make you forget. The empath's love is the most transformative force on earth, but when that love turns inward, it becomes unbeatable. You no longer chase love, you embody it. You no longer explain your worth, you radiate it. You no longer fear being alone. You thrive in solitude. That's the difference between healing and evolution. Healing closes wounds. Evolution turns them into wisdom. And you've evolved, because through every stage, the collapse, the detox, the silence, the power, the magnetism, the transcendence, the supernova, you became something they can't touch, can't replace, can't forget. You became evidence, evidence that love without boundaries isn't noble, it's self-betrayal, evidence that silence isn't weakness, it's a language of power, evidence that once an empath stops chasing, the whole dynamic dies. So from this moment forward, you don't explain your energy, you protect it. You don't compete for love, you attract alignment. You don't dim your light, you control where it shines. Because you are no longer the person who needed closure, you are the closure. And somewhere out there, the avoidant will realize they didn't just lose you. They lost the one person who loved them past their own walls, and that realization will echo in silence for years. But not your problem. You've got galaxies to build now. Before you go, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for the rest of Volume 8. Their breaking point, silence, replacement, and regret. Because we're just getting started. This channel isn't just about breakups. It's about becoming unbreakable. If this episode hit your soul, drop a comment below and share your reflection. And remember, the first person to comment the secret mantra from Stage 3 gets pinned. Until next time, stay silent, stay sovereign, stay magnetic. Because once the super empath goes supernova, the world doesn't just notice, it revolves around